Have you ever cried and then felt ashamed for crying? Maybe you poured out your heart to someone you trusted, a spiritual leader, a friend, even God. And instead of being held in your pain, you were told to have more faith, to pray harder, to just get over it. Or maybe you've learned to hide your struggles altogether because somewhere along the way, you started believing that your pain was proof something was fundamentally wrong with you. That if people really knew what you felt, what you've questioned, and what you've been through, they wouldn't love you anymore. If that sounds familiar, sweet friend, take a breath. You're in the right place. Today, we're talking about one of the most devastating hidden barriers of religious trauma, the belief that I'm unlovable. This lie whispers that your wounds make you damaged goods, that honest grief means weak faith, that if you were truly spiritual, you'd have it more together by now. But here's what I need you to know right from the start. Your pain doesn't make you unlovable. It makes you human. And I'm going to introduce you to something today that might change everything. An ancient language of honest worship that was stolen from you, but it's always been yours. We're going to talk about lament, about bringing your unfiltered heart directly to God, and about discovering that nothing, not your fury, not your grief, not your questions, not your despair, is too much for Him. This might feel heavy, and that's okay. You don't have to have this figured out. You don't have to perform here. So settle in and let's explore what it looks like when the God who sees you invites you to stop hiding your heart. Let's begin. Welcome to Healing Religious Trauma, the podcast for Christian women ready to heal without losing their faith. If you're feeling the weight of spiritual pressure and distant from the God you used to trust, you are in the right place. I'm Deborah Schaefer, spiritual healing coach, founder of the Coming Home Journey, and someone who's walked the hard road of untangling toxic faith. If you're ready to make sense of your story, find peace with a safe, loving God, and hear stories that remind you you're not alone, grab your tea, toss the rule book, and let's go. Before we dive in today, I want you to know something. If you're realizing that your pain has been silenced instead of held, if you're discovering that you've been hiding your heart, even from God, because you thought it made you unlovable, there's a path forward that was designed exactly for this. The Coming Home Journey walks you through all 12 barriers of religious trauma, with guided teaching, community support, and the tools to finally break free. Over 6 months, we unravel the trauma together, instill the deeper truth about who God really is, and create a new story that leads you back to yourself, to God, and to the woman you were always meant to become. You can learn more at thecominghomejourney.com. That's thecominghomejourney.com. And if you're not ready for a 6-month commitment just yet, I have something else for you. Take our free religious trauma assessment at religionstraumaquiz.com. That's religionstraumaquiz.com. In just 10 minutes, you'll discover which hidden barriers are affecting your life. Plus, you'll get my complete Essentials Starter Kit. That's my book, He Is Enough, a gentle mini course, live reading circles with me, and access to our private community, all free as my gift to you. Sometimes, just naming what we're carrying is the first step toward freedom. You know, I need to share something with you that's pretty tender for me, but I think it might help you understand why this barrier, this I'm unlovable lie, is so insidious. Years ago, I left with my daughter to seek treatment for an illness. What I didn't know was that I would never be allowed to return. While I was gone, trying to get well, my husband divorced us and married my best friend, and no one told us. My 17-year-old daughter went to the mailbox one day and found a piece of mail that would shatter everything. It had this other woman's name on it, with my last name. My daughter had to carry that devastating secret until she could find the courage to tell me later that day. Can you imagine having to hear that from your daughter? The woman who was supposed to protect her from pain had to be told by her own child about something this devastating. I got physically sick. Every time the thought of them together came to my mind, I vomited. I felt like the most unlovable, disrespected, dishonored woman alive. And my daughter felt it too. The humiliation, the rejection, the worthlessness. So I did what I thought I was supposed to do. I went to my spiritual leaders, my in-laws, and poured out my tears and anguish. And they shut it down. No tears allowed. When I sat on the floor weeping before my father-in-law, who was our spiritual leader, he not only dismissed my pain, he turned it on me. They told me I must have committed spiritual adultery somehow, that I was to blame, that this was justified. And here's the devastating part. I believed them. For years, I carried the shame of being the unfaithful one, even though I had never, ever committed adultery, not even in my thoughts, and definitely not in my actions. I saw myself as a shamed woman, unloved, unworthy, damaged beyond repair. I learned that my pain made me unlovable, that expressing it made me weak, that if I was truly spiritual, I would just get over it. But then, years later, I shared my story with a very respected pastor and his wife, salt of the earth people with tender hearts. And when I told them about my shame and my unlovableness, she stopped me in my tracks. He was the unfaithful one, she said. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You are still the loyal one, and God has a special place in his heart for you. That moment cracked something open in me. For the first time, I felt permission to take my whole, broken, furious, grieving heart directly to God, with no spiritual leaders as gatekeepers, no performance required, no cleaning myself up first. And you know what I discovered? God didn't flinch at my pain. He didn't shut me down. He didn't blame me. He met me there with the most inexpressible love I've ever known. I remembered Psalm 27:10. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take me up. And that's exactly what happened. When those who were supposed to hold my pain turned away, God took me up. He held what they refused to hold. That's when I learned what the Psalms had been trying to teach me all along. That honest, raw expression to God isn't rebellion, it's relationship. And my pain didn't make me unlovable. It made me human. And God's chesed, his loyal covenant love, is specifically for humans in all our beautiful brokenness. So if you've been hiding your pain because you think it makes you damaged goods, I need you to hear this. You're not unlovable. You were under-nurtured. And the God who sees you is inviting you to bring him everything. The fury, the grief, the questions, the despair, all of it. Because nothing is too much for him. Okay, I have 3 points I'd like to talk about in today's teaching. Let's talk about what this I'm unlovable barrier actually looks like in your life. Because here's the thing, you might not even realize you're carrying it. This barrier shows up when you give love freely to everyone around you, but you rarely let yourself receive it. You're the one who shows up for others, remembers their birthdays, asks how they're doing, but when someone turns that question back to you, you deflect with, "Oh, I'm fine." It shows up when you're hurting, and you wait for others to reach out to you, but you feel crushed when they don't, because you've never actually told them you're struggling. You've learned to hide your pain so well that people genuinely don't know you need them. It shows up in the moments when you're crying in your car or your bedroom, and you hear that voice in your head saying, "Get it together. You shouldn't be this upset. Good Christians don't struggle like this." You've learned that expressing pain equals weak faith, that asking for help is selfish, that if people really knew what you felt, what you've questioned, what you've been through, they wouldn't love you anymore. And here's the heartbreaking part. This wasn't something you were born believing. This was taught to you. Maybe you grew up in environments where emotions were dismissed or spiritualized away. Just pray about it. You need to have more faith. If you were truly walking with God, you wouldn't feel this way. Maybe you watched other women get labeled as too emotional, too needy, when they expressed pain. So you learned to be the strong one, the one who doesn't need much, the one who's always okay. Or maybe like me, you experienced deep betrayal or abandonment. And when you tried to express your anguish to spiritual leaders, they turned your pain into your fault. They made you believe that somehow your suffering was proof of your spiritual failure. But here's what I need you to understand. You learned that love. You learned that love had to be earned through obedience, through self-denial, through being good enough. You learned that your needs were burdensome and your pain was inconvenient. And that is not the heart of God. That's not how He sees you. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit." Did you catch that? God draws near to the brokenhearted. Your pain doesn't repel Him. It moves His heart towards you. So here's a small win for this week. I want you to notice one moment when you hide your pain or minimize your needs. Just notice it. You don't have to fix it yet. Just observe it with compassion and say to yourself, that's the barrier. That's not the truth. Because the truth is, your pain doesn't make you unlovable. It makes you beautifully, achingly human. Okay, let's move on to the second point. I want to introduce you to something that might feel completely foreign, but it's actually deeply biblical. It's called lament. And if you're thinking, what's lament? I've never heard of that in church. That's exactly the problem. This ancient language of honest worship has been stolen from so many of us, especially women. But here's what's amazing. Nearly 1/3 of the Psalms, the prayer book of the Bible, are laments. Raw, honest, sometimes angry expressions of pain brought directly to God. Listen to these. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? That's Psalm 22. How long, Lord, wilt thou forget me forever? How long wilt thou hide thy face from me? That's Psalm 13. Save me, O God, for the waters are come in unto my soul. I sink in deep mire where there is no standing. That's Psalm 69. These aren't signs of spiritual failure. These are invitations to encounter God's heart in your deepest places. Lament follows a pattern. Complaint, then petition, then trust, then praise. It starts with brutal honesty about what's wrong, moves to direct requests for God's help, shifts towards embracing his character, and ends in worship. Not because the pain is gone, but because you've encountered his presence in the middle of it. And here's what makes lament so powerful. It bypasses every middleman. You don't need a spiritual leader to give you permission. You don't need to clean up your emotions first. You don't need to wait until you're more spiritual. You can go directly to the source of all healing with your whole, unfiltered heart. Because nothing, and I mean nothing, is too much for God. Not your fury, not your grief, not your questions, not your despair. This is where you discover what the Hebrew Bible calls chesed. It's one of those words that's so rich, we don't even have a perfect English translation of it. It means God's loyal, covenant love, his steadfast kindness, his unfailing mercy. Michael Card, who's done beautiful work on this concept, describes chesed as when a person from whom you have a right to expect nothing gives you everything. That's what happens in lament. You come to God with nothing to offer but your broken heart, and he meets you there with everything. His presence, his love, his faithful commitment to you that has nothing to do with your performance. And then something miraculous happens. There's this turning point that Hebrew scholars call the Vav moment, named after a simple Hebrew letter that means and or but. It's the moment when your focus shifts from your finite pain to God's infinite character. You've poured out everything you're carrying. You've told him how it really feels. And in that place of complete honesty, his chesed breaks through. Not because your pain disappeared, but because you've entered into the reality of his inexpressible love. Psalm 62:8 says, "Trust in him at all times. Ye people, pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us." Pour out your heart, not clean it up, not make it presentable. Pour it out. The mess, the questions, the rage, the sorrow, all of it. So here's your practice for this week. Try bringing one honest struggle to God without apologizing for it. Use the pattern of lament. Start with, God, I need to tell you how I really feel. And then just be honest. Tell him what's hard. Ask him for what you need. Then see if you can add, but I remember that you are, and speak one truth about his character, even if it's just, you are with me. You don't have to feel it perfectly. You're just learning a new language, the language your soul was always meant to speak. Okay, and here's our last point today. Now, I want to shift something in how you see yourself, because here's a truth that might just set you free. You weren't unloved. You were under-nurtured. Think about a garden for a moment. If you plant a beautiful seed in soil that lacks nutrients, water, and sunlight, that seed might struggle. It might not bloom the way it was designed to. But the problem isn't with the seed. It's with the environment. The garden of your heart was designed to receive consistent, gentle, unconditional love. You were meant to be cherished, to have your emotions welcomed, to know that your needs mattered. But if you grew up in environments where love felt conditional, where approval had to be earned through obedience or performance, your heart learned to survive in drought conditions. You learned to need less, to ask for less, to expect less. And you started believing that the problem was you, that somehow you weren't worthy of the kind of love your soul was craving. But the problem was never you, sweet friend. The problem was the environment. The problem was the people who couldn't hold your pain because they never learned to hold their own. The problem was with systems that spiritualized suffering instead of sitting with it. And here's the beautiful truth. God's chesed, his inexpressible covenant love, is specifically for humans in all their beautiful brokenness. You don't have to be healed to be loved by him. You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to perform your way into his heart. Your pain, your questions, your struggles, they don't disqualify you from his love. They're the very places where his love shines brightest. Lamentations 3:22 through 23 says, "It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness." Every morning, his compassion is new, not because you earned it, not because you finally got yourself together, but because that's who he is. And when healing tears come, and they won't be tears of falling apart. They'll be tears of finally being held. Tears of relief that you don't have to hide anymore. Tears of encountering a love that says, "I see all of you, and I'm not going anywhere." So here's your invitation. Do one act of gentle self-care that reflects your inherent worth. Not because you earned it, not because you've been good enough, but because you matter. Maybe it's just lighting a candle and sitting in silence for 5 minutes. Maybe it's taking a bath. Maybe it's just buying yourself flowers to brighten up your environment. Maybe it's simply placing your hand on your heart and saying, "I am worthy of tenderness." Start practicing what it feels like to be loved well, to be nurtured, to matter. Because you do. You always have. So let me bring this together for you. You're not unlovable because you hurt. You're learning that your pain can be a pathway to the deepest love you've ever known. You've been hiding your heart because you thought it made you damaged goods. But God is inviting you into an ancient language, lament, where you can bring him everything and discover that nothing is too much for him. You weren't unloved. You were under-nurtured. And the garden of your heart is ready to receive the consistent, gentle, unconditional love it was always designed for. This week, practice bringing one honest emotion to God each day. No cleaning it up first, no apologizing for it, just honest expression. And watch for the chesed moment, when his inexpressible love breaks through and you realize that your pain doesn't separate you from him. It brings you closer than you've ever been. If today's episode stirred something in you, if you're realizing you've been hiding your heart even from God because you thought your pain made you unlovable, I want you to know there's a complete path forward. The Coming Home journey takes you through all 12 hidden barriers with teaching, community support, and guided practices. 6 months to unravel the trauma, instill the truth, and create your new story. You'll learn the language of lament, discover God's divine principles, and step into the freedom you've been longing for. You can learn more at thecominghomejourney.com. If you're not quite ready for that, start with our free assessment at religiostraumaquiz.com. You'll discover your personalized healing path and receive my complete Essential Starter Kit, my book, He Is Enough, the Truth Over Tradition mini course, live reading circles, and access to our supportive, safe community. All free as my gift to you. Your healing is possible. Your voice matters, and you were never meant to carry this alone. Hey friend, if this episode encouraged you and made you feel a little less alone, would you share it with someone who needs this too? And would you leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts? It's like a virtual hug that helps more women find their way here. Next time, we're exploring the I'm a failure barrier. Why following all the rules still left you feeling like you can't get it right. And how God's divine principles become your compass instead of measuring sticks for worthiness. Until then, remember, you're not too sensitive, you're not broken, and you're not alone. Your pain doesn't make you unlovable. It makes you human, and God's love is specifically for you. Keep asking questions, keep seeking truth, and keep believing that healing is possible. I'll see you next time.